and good morning to Willow Hill and everyone joining us for worship today. We are so excited to worship with you on this third day of Christmas. We have a wonderful service planned, which includes the final message in our sermon series, Down to Earth, the Mystery of the Incarnation, with Pastor Nicole's message, Guided by the Star. If you are new to Willow Hill, we would love a chance to get to know you, so please consider filling out the digital connection card linked in the video's description or comment new below the video. If you'd like to get to know Willow Hill a little bit more, you can check out our website, willowhill.org, or you can find us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll go ahead and link our website as well as our social media handles in the video's description. Throughout the course of the worship service, please feel free to like, comment, and let us know what you're thinking. We would love to hear from you. Now, please join in singing this morning's hymn.
We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Glorious now, behold him arise, King and God and sacrifice. Alleluia, alleluia, down to the earth and skies. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
Please join me in prayer this morning. Heavenly Father, thank you for coming down to earth, for bringing us Jesus, a beacon of light in the darkness. We need that light and hope more than ever now. As we stand on the precipice of a new year, Lord, help us to relinquish ourselves to you, to deepen our relationship and brighten our light so that we may better shine your love onto others. Thank you for the frontline workers who continue to step forward day after day. Please blanket them with health and safety as they continue to faithfully serve. Thank you for the vaccine and the hope that it brings in the coming year. We pray for the ill, those who are physically, mentally, and financially struggling right now, and for those who have endured loss. It is in such dark times that we most need your light, Lord. We lift up our hearts and voices to you, praying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Hi friends, it is time for small talk. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. We're not done with our stories yet. We have one more story to share. And this story still has to do with Christmas because today's the day we celebrate when the wise men brought gifts to baby Jesus. So this story, instead of being about the wise men, is about the camel. One of the camels that they rode on is called Humphrey's First Christmas. Look at Humphrey. Isn't he a gorgeous camel? We'll see if I can read all of this or not. We might have to read part of it and just show you some pages. Beloved, most beauteous and exalted King of all should be my name. Instead, they call me Humphrey. This I could bear if the worst thing of all had not happened. My dearest possession, my glorious carpet blanket, has been lost along the trail. Now I am never warm and I suffer terribly. This is why I have set into motion a plan to replace my most greatest of all treasures. I carefully nudge my nose inside the caravan master's tent. That is followed closely by the chattering of my teeth, thereby letting the master know that I am most enormously cold. Success! He has not pushed me out, and I remain hopeful that a new blanket will soon be mine. These rich caravans have joined us, and there has been talk of kings. Yet these kings bring me no joy, for they have tied 3 huge chests to my bare back. They are so heavy, and I am sure each must be filled with rocks. He does not look very happy. The other camels are wearing the finest of blankets. They're all comfortable and warm. Not one of them thinks about me, their cousin, in pain and misery because of the loss of my most precious carpet blanket. I cry out in sorrow and I weep. Today I continue my plan to regain my treasured blanket. I add loud snuffling to the chattering of teeth and squeeze my entire body inside my master's tent. And as I do so, out rolls my master, for the tent is exactly camel-sized. It is as I planned. As the master chases me away, he tosses me a new blanket. I have success. Once more, I'm covered with splendor and comfort. I'm filled with delight. If it were not for this heavy chest I'm forced to carry, I would be almost happy. We followed one star for many long nights. Now our caravan enters the town of Bethlehem. Its streets and inns are crowded with travelers. My master gives no thought to my tired feet and rumbling belly, and I am forced to move on. At last we reach the end of our journey, but I am confused. This is no great palace, no rich oasis, no palms heavy with fruit. I see only a lowly stable with a family inside. The 3 kings rejoice and rush forward to bow before the young woman who cradles a baby. Finally, the chests are taken from my back and placed before this tiny child. As each box is opened, I see no stones, only gold, frankincense, and myrrh. In this land, I have walked past many children, but never before have I felt the need to walk toward one. Now I kneel before this baby shivering in a manger. Watching him gladdens me more than sweet water, fresh hay, or even my wondrous new blanket. I look into the baby's eyes. I'm overwhelmed by love. I pull the treasure from my back and lay my gift carefully upon this child. He smiles, and my nose and whiskers tingle with joy. I am happy to my toes, and even without my blanket, I feel warm. Beloved, most beauteous and exalted King of all should be his name. Instead, they call him Jesus. Now, Humphrey thought he was important and really wanted his special blanket to feel warm. He couldn't do anything to feel warm. He was complaining. And then once he saw Jesus, he realized that that baby Jesus was so special, so wondrous, so full of love, that love just came right out to Humphrey. And Humphrey felt all warm inside with love from Jesus. And then he gave him his most precious gift, his blanket, and said that Jesus is the most beauteous, exalted King of all. So let's remember that. Jesus is the best gift ever. And because of Jesus and the love that God gave us through Jesus, we can all feel warm inside our hearts. Let's say our sentence prayer. Dear God, thank you for Jesus and for Christmas celebrations. Please help us remember that Jesus warms our hearts with your love. Amen.
An overflowing mitten tree, incredible support of the Angel Tree Prison Ministry, and 4 wonderful Christmas Eve services. A snapshot of these last 2 weeks sounds like another amazing end to a year at Willow Hill, and it has been. But it's been more than that. It's been exceptional. This year did not stop our Willow Hill family from carrying out the mission of gather, grow, and go. Willow Hill has gone above and beyond these past few weeks. But that doesn't seem unusual. Going above and beyond could be a theme for this year because despite everything, we have continued our mission. While the methods may not have been the same, we've had the opportunity to forge new paths and find new ways to be the hands and feet of God. None of that would be possible without the generosity of people like you. Thank you to those who give and those who would like to give but are unable. Sharing your time, talents, and financial gifts allows Willow Hill to support missions and ministries that reach out and share the transforming power of God's love. Thank you.
The Virgin Mary had a baby boy.
The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy, and they gave him the name of Jesus. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh yes, believer. Oh yes, believer. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom.
Well, the angels sing when the baby born. The angels sing when the baby born. The angels sing when the baby was born and proclaim him the Savior, Jesus. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh yes, believer. Oh yes, believer. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. The wise men saw where the baby born. The wise men saw where the baby born. The wise men saw where the baby was born, and they said that his name was Jesus. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh yes, believer. Oh yes, believer. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy, and they gave him the name of Jesus. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom.
Well, good morning, Willow Hill. On this third day of Christmas, I am so grateful that we are able to gather together wherever we are to celebrate the Christ child. Would you join me in a word of prayer this morning? Oh, good and gracious God, we are grateful for our time to worship you this morning. Speak to us that we might hear what you have to share. It's in your name that we pray. Amen. Well, have you ever been forced to take a detour? It's never exciting, is it? It always happens at the worst possible time. It takes way longer than you want it to. It's generally just a terrible thing, right? I had one such experience. I was on a charter bus with 50 youth and adult leaders with another charter bus full behind us. We were headed out east on a trip, and that's when the detour happened. Somewhere in Indiana, one of my adult leaders started to have a kidney stone attack. She was in terrible pain. Now, thankfully, we had a van that was following us with some equipment, so we loaded her and the adult leaders and me, 2 drivers, and we took her to the hospital. I sat up with her all night. She was just in such pain until her husband could come and meet us at the hospital. Then the drivers, who had been asleep at a local hotel, swung by the hospital, picked me up, and we were back on the road, back on our route, ready to meet up with the rest of our team. Well, until we weren't. Detour number 2. Our van decided to break down on the side of the interstate, and we were stuck there for 5 hours in the hot Virginia summer sun until a state trooper came by, picked us up, and took us to the next town to a hotel. But even then, we had to wait for our van to be towed and to be fixed before we could move on. Well, about 30 hours into this terrible adventure, we were finally rescued and we were able to meet back up with the rest of our group. Talk about a detour. Well, today we're going to tell a story about a great detour that we find in the Bible. A journey that took unexpected turns midway through. But in the end, despite all the twists and turns, they were able to accomplish their goal. So we're going to look at this story, the story of the Magi. We find it in the book of Matthew, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 and following. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. The Magi's story is so rich with details that we often overlook with our 21st century brains. Details that we just don't really know because we weren't alive back then. First, the Magi were not kings, as we sometimes think and sing, "We Three Kings," right? Actually, they were astronomers, astrologers. They were stargazers. And so it made sense that they noticed this star in the sky and wanted to follow it. They headed to Jerusalem, which of course makes sense. If a king was to be born in Israel, of course it would be at the king's palace, right? In his book, Incarnation, Adam Hamilton writes about this journey. He says this: "These magi traveled across ancient highways of the Fertile Crescent, a route of some 1,200 miles that would have taken a caravan at least 100 days to cross. This journey would have come at no small personal cost. They were determined to honor this newborn king. They came believing the stars were telling the birth of the long-awaited Jewish Messiah." When they arrived, the Magi headed to the palace only to find that no baby had been born there. Herod, the king, was utterly confused and disturbed. Now, Herod wasn't Jewish, so he didn't know much about this Jewish Messiah. So he called together the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and he asked them about this tradition of the Messiah. They informed Herod that the Messiah was to be born in Bethlehem. And so Herod immediately goes on the defensive. He doesn't want his throne usurped by this so-called Messiah. So he came up with a plan, and he came up with one quick. He secretly calls the Magi back to him and tells them to go and find this Messiah child and to let him know where they find him so that he too can worship the baby. It's the perfect plan. You see, the Magi will do all the work, find out where the Messiah is, and then Herod can deal with that Messiah however he sees fit. So the Magi continue their travel all the way to Bethlehem. A little bit of a detour. They leave Jerusalem, they follow the star, and the star leads them to this house in Bethlehem. And they go inside, and what do they find? Not a baby, but a child. When we look at the original Greek of this passage, the word that is used is the word for a small child, probably 2 to 3 years old. The Magi are overjoyed to see this child. They bow down and they worship him, and they give him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now, it's important for us to note that we don't know how many Magi were traveling, but it was most likely a caravan of them. You know, a lot of times we assume 3 Magi, 3 wise men, because that's what we see in our nativity scenes. Because there were 3 gifts, we assume 3 Magi. Even this nativity scene behind us has 3 Magi there. But we really don't know how many, and it was probably more because of the caravan. It was a bigger group so that they could stay safe as they were traveling. Now, I don't know about you, but these gifts that they give to this child, not really child-friendly gifts, right? I mean, where are the diapers and the toys and the casserole, right? But actually, these gifts hold great significance. Gold was perfect for a king. Anytime a king was presented with gold, it was added to their amassed wealth, and it was considered an honoring gift. What do you give a person who has everything? More gold, right? But seriously, for the Magi to give this gift of gold to this child was to proclaim him as a worthy king. Frankincense was a very special and specific kind of perfume. In Exodus, in the Old Testament, we're told that frankincense was to be used in the sanctuary of the temple, the Holy of Holies. This was the most holy place in the temple where they believed that the Spirit of God dwelled. And in the Jewish faith, frankincense wasn't to be used anywhere else or for anything else than in this sanctuary where God lived. It was to be reserved for this holy purpose. So for the Magi to give this gift of frankincense, whether they realized it or not, was to proclaim that this child was the presence of God, God incarnate, right there in their midst. Finally, myrrh. Now, myrrh is a special oil. It's an oil that was used by the high priest in Jewish tradition as an anointing oil. And Messiah means anointed one. The myrrh was also used to prepare a body for a funeral, for their burial. So if we fast forward to the end of the Gospels, the end of Jesus' life, a man named Nicodemus bought myrrh to prepare Jesus' body for burial after he had been crucified. For the Magi to give this gift, unbeknownst to them, was to proclaim this child as the anointed one, the Messiah, who would die on behalf of all of our sins. I remember when I first learned the significance of these gifts when I was in seminary, the meaning behind these gifts, it opened my eyes to see this story in a very different way. Do you see what I mean by how rich this story is in detail? Well, after the Magi worshiped the child and presented him with these extraordinary, expensive gifts, they began their journey home, another 100 days journey. But they were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, as Herod had commanded them. Instead, they were to go another way. That detour would save the life of this precious child and may have saved the life of the Magi as well. You know, I don't think the Magi had any idea what they were getting themselves into when they started following that star. I think they were just curious about the unique star that they saw in the sky, and they wanted to satisfy that curiosity. I have a hard time believing that the Magi from the far east could ever fully understand these deep significance and these gifts that they were giving. Surely they chose these gifts because they were expensive and they were worthy of a king, but how could they have known the profound meaning that they would have throughout the life that Jesus lived? I just can't imagine that they could have ever known. That brings me great hope. You know why? Because to me, it is a reminder that God is always at work, whether we realize it or not. That God is constantly at work in our lives, leading us even when we don't realize it. And sometimes situations go in very different directions than we had planned. We hit a detour, right? But when we look back at that experience later in life, we can realize that God was present, that he was guiding us down the path that maybe we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves, but that he was leading us to where he wanted us to be. Maybe you have an instance or 2 or 20 like that in your life. I expect that if you spent some time reflecting and thinking, you could probably come up with a story in your life where, just like the Magi, God knew something better for your life than you knew for yourself. I wanted to kind of test that theory out a little bit, so I made a post on Facebook asking people if they had experienced that situation before, that looking back and seeing how God had shepherded them in a certain direction that maybe they weren't aware of at the time, but later they were able to see how God was present and moving in their life. I had so many people share stories with me. It was overwhelming and beautiful. I really wish that I could read each story with you because there's so much meaning there and so much power there. But unfortunately, time will not allow for that. So I'm just going to share a few with you this morning. One person shared with me that when she was younger, she was stuck in a verbally and physically abusive relationship. It was awful, and she feared for her life. One day, she prayed to God and asked God to send somebody to walk by her window to get her out of that situation. And you know what? God did. He sent someone, and she was able to leave and get out of that situation. In more recent years, she has been able to use that terrible experience to help others. She's been able to counsel other women who were in abusive relationships, helping them to build courage to leave their abusers. She's been able to use her story to help others. And she has seen that God was with her, shepherding her and guiding her, especially now as she was seeking to help others. Another person who happens to be a pastor friend of mine was appointed to a new church where he had to take a $20,000 pay cut. Whoa. Of course, that seemed so overwhelming at the time. It was really hard. But he told me that he knew God was with him, that God was in him, in his family, in his churches. He told me about the unexpected and extravagant generosity that he experienced in those days. He shared how greatly his faith was strengthened during that time and how he felt God's love in incredible ways. Today, he's serving at a church where he's back up to what he was making before, but these lessons that he learned from that previous church are embedded in him, and he is so thankful for the experience in trusting God in that really difficult time. Yet another friend shared that she had this wonderful opportunity, a job opportunity lined up. It seemed perfect for her. Good pay, an exciting job, and at the last minute, it fell through. She was frustrated and sad and questioning why God would ever let that happen to her. Well, fast forward a year, and she found herself with 3 job opportunities. None of them paid as much as the previous job, but she decided to take the job that she felt like God was leading her to. 6.5 months in, she absolutely loves it. She loves the work. She loves her coworkers. She likes and respects her boss. She is so happy and so grateful that God led her right to where she was supposed to be. The other stories that were shared with me were so amazing. People shared stories of heartbreaking loss, where God sent such peace and love to be with them. People shared stories of losing something that they thought was so important, only to find out that God was leading them to a more fulfilling place. People shared stories of fractured relationships, the dissolving of dreams, and heartbreaking grief. And in each situation, God was present. And even in the midst of brokenness, God brought something amazing that no one could have predicted. Reading through these stories had me in tears, just realizing how good our God is. You know, sometimes we don't understand why we find ourselves where we do in life. Sometimes we don't understand why God is asking us to do something like following a star or taking a huge pay cut or losing a job that you thought was meant for you. We may feel lost and alone in that moment. But if we trust God, we might find something great. That God might be leading us to a place that we don't understand. He might be leading us to a place where we don't want to go. But when we look back, maybe even it's years later, we see that God was with us the whole time, guiding us and helping us along the way. Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." These verses remind me that I only have a really finite view of my life. I can try and guess and plan, or I can rely on God who holds an infinite view of my life and knows what each and every moment of my life holds. I don't know about you, but I want to rely on God in my life. I want to trust that he knows what is best. I want to rely on his wisdom and his strength and his understanding because I know that God wants what is best for me, and I want to trust that. What if in 2021 we worked harder to give up control and to instead trust God to lead us? I thought it might be fun for each of us to take some time and kind of test out that theory a little bit. We're starting a new year, and that means new opportunities to allow God to guide our steps. So I want to start a new tradition here at Willow Hill, a tradition that will hopefully help us see God at work in our lives. I have a stack of these stars, each with a different word written on it. Now, each star, as the word was written, was prayed over, praying that God would get the right word to the right person. Now, these words will hopefully help to guide you in your relationship with God in 2021. Just as the Magi followed the star that led them to Jesus, it is my prayer that this star and the word written on it will help you to lead you in a deeper relationship with Jesus. So this star word will be yours for all of 2021. Here's how it works. Pray that God will use this word in your life to bring you closer to Him. Pray that God will open your eyes, your ears, your heart to this word and how it might be at work in your life. And then be on the lookout for that word to make an appearance in your life. You may be surprised at how you encounter this word. You may be surprised at how the word means something different than you originally thought it might mean. I invite you to keep this star somewhere where you will see it often, maybe on a bathroom mirror, on your dashboard in your car, maybe by your desk at work. And allow God to use this word to guide you. Now, you may not like your word. You may be confused by your word. You may wish that you could choose a different word for yourself. And I get it. Those are all natural feelings. But I will tell you that it is my experience that people who had an adverse reaction to their word at first are the people who have the most incredible stories of how the star word has impacted their life. So be patient and allow God to work. I want to tell you one story about a person and their star word. One of my former parishioners drew a word in 2019 that moved in him in a powerful way. He was battling cancer at the time, but was fighting the good fight. He was relatively healthy and was doing okay. The word he pulled that year was prepare. His wife called me a few months into the new year and said that he knew what that word was supposed to mean for him. I, of course, wanted to know. And she told me that he said that he knew that that word prepare was meant for him because he was to prepare himself and his family for the end of his life to come that year. And it did. He passed away that fall. God had used that star word to prepare his heart and his mind for what was to come. Now, not everyone has such dramatic stories about their star word, but over the years, I have been blessed to hear how God has used these little words to make a difference in the lives of people. I have had star words make a difference in my life. In fact, my word for 2020 was pray. If there was ever a year I needed that word, it was in 2020, let me tell you. So I want to invite you to take part in this new tradition. Today, from 2 to 3, I will be up at the church handing out star words. We even have little star words for the kids that are specific to children. So come and I will give you a star that has been prayed over specifically for you. If you can't make it between 2 and 3 p.m. today, that's okay. Just let me know and we will find another way to get a star to you. When you get your star, I want to invite you to reflect on your word, to ponder the significance that this word might have for your life in 2021. Think about how God might be speaking to you, guiding you through that star. And be intentional. Pray about it. You know, the Magi followed a star and it changed their lives forever. Maybe this star will change your life too. You know, I love the story of the Magi and their willingness to blindly follow this star. They had no idea how their lives would be changed by what they found at the end. But as they looked back later, I bet they were praising God for the incredible opportunity that they were given to meet the Christ child. You know, we can do the same. We can reflect back in our lives and see God at work, and we can praise God for the paths that He has directed us on. So may we be grateful to God, and may we know that God is working even now to get us where He wants us to be. Would you pray with me, please? Oh God, in your infinite wisdom, you guide us, and we are so grateful. We ask that you would continue to open our eyes that we might see you at work, that we might be reminded of your unfailing love and your steadfast presence with each of us. And as we move through difficult times, God, show us that you are here and remind us of your love. It's in your name that we pray. Amen. Well, this worship service has ended, but your life in Christ goes on and on. May your peace be so real and your joy so evident that all who see you come to know God. Amen.
Thank you for worshiping with us. Please enjoy this preview of our upcoming sermon series.
You know, 2020 threw us quite a curve, didn't it? Man, have we lived through a year like that? Not in my memory, where there was so much that was happening. The Australian wildfires, earthquakes, locust plagues in foreign countries, sandstorms, hurricane season, all of these things. Remember murder hornets? All of these things on top of a global pandemic and racism and all of these terrible things that just have us thinking, what is going on? And now that we're in 2021, there is no magician that's going to come and magically erase all of these things that have been piling up around us. So instead of wishing these things away, what if we asked God to teach us from these hard situations? What can we learn from the difficulties that we've been experiencing? So I want to invite you to join us for a new sermon series called Learning Curve, where we'll be thinking about the things that God taught us in 2020 that we can leverage to help us be better in 2021. I hope you will join us.
We hope to see you this afternoon, December 27th from 2 to 3 p.m. in order to pick up your Star Word. If you're unable to be at the church at that time, please reach out to Pastor Nicole and she'll make sure you get a star. If you'd like to contribute a year-end gift to the church, contributions must be postmarked by December 31st and online gifts must be dated by December 31st to count towards your 2020 giving record. If you wish to drop off a year-end gift in person, please contact Kathy Thompson by noon on December 31st. If you would like an upper room devotional, they're available at the church in the box outside of the church entrance, or you can contact Gina Hewlett to have a copy delivered to your home. For prayer concerns, contact Gina Hewlett. For pastoral care needs, please contact Pastor Nicole Cox. Staff contact information can be found on our website. If you enjoyed today's worship service, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on our latest videos. Thank you and have a blessed day.